police selection committee meeting.
I
know. Back to back to back to back to back. This is like the silly season right now.
You two are twinning. We're gonna get the color memo.
Uh-oh. Oh, I missed the memo. Okay, folks, hate to do this. Where's Councilor Canales? He's here. Okay, here we go. All right, no, whenever you're ready, man. I'm good. Yeah, good. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the third and final budget session, if you will. And at this point, I will certainly take any public comment on any topic. Denise, I know you've been a regular here, so if you'd like to comment on anything before we get started. Sure. We get you a seat up here next, Denise. All right, thank you. Just as I open these sessions as a recap, I felt it important that there be an opportunity for the council to meet with department heads as an entire council to hear the budget proposals for next year, and then to provide any comments, concerns, feedback as I continue to develop the 2022 mayor's proposed budget. That proposed budget is on schedule to be released on the 7th of October. And the opportunity that I would like for the council to take is if there are any changes or updates or, recommendations for changes that, they can provide those and I can incorporate those back before I present that. It doesn't usurp the process in the charter. Again, the process is clearly outlined. The mayor delivers the proposed budget on or before October 8th. No later than, no sooner than 7 days after should a public hearing be scheduled and held. I think right now we're looking at the 18th of October to allow for that. I think it's like a week and several days. And I know that there's a holiday in there too, so the city is closed. So we're giving that a week and a couple days to review. After which that public hearing, the council then takes the budget and makes additions, deletions, corrections, changes on or before January 15th. If that fails to happen, then it automatically reverts to the mayor's budget as proposed. I think I got all that right. Right.
So can you repeat when you are thinking the public hearing will be?
The 18th of October,
What
which is a
time?
Monday.
Yeah, what time?
What time? 5 o'clock?
Same as our public safety, right up before our public safety.
Before or after public safety?
Before,
Yeah.
I have to double check the steamroll stuff.
Okay. Oh, right. That's right. Okay. It doesn't have to be that. If there's a different day that folks, it really is more. I think it's the intention is that the public can comment and come and ask questions. And, right. So. Pardon? Yeah. Right. Okay.
What about, and this is only a suggestion and,
Yes.
what about having a public hearing that is just its own meeting?
I 100%. I think that's a good viable option. It's just now it would just be a matter of finding a day
Yeah.
that would make the most sense. If it's not the 18th, which is that Monday, I know that you're generally not available on Tuesdays. It would have to be then be that Wednesday, which I think is the 20th.
Mhm.
And then we also have a meeting
For second the council meeting that night.
21st or 22nd, right?
21st is council.
Okay, so it could be on that 20th, which is a Wednesday.
It's just a thought. So
Yeah, no,
it could be its own, it could be its own meeting that
Yeah,
way.
fair enough.
Just a suggestion. I don't know how the remainder of council feels about that, but.
Its own meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're flexible. It's
So we can have the time needs, just in case we end up, probably won't have to, but just in case a lot of people want.
Yeah, that happened to us last year where we had our public hearing was tied into our meeting, and we had to adjourn the hearing, have a regular scheduled meeting, reconvene the hearing, and I think, Jeff, you can recall correctly, I think we were here until like 7:30 that night because of that. And in order for it to get its own process, I think it might be beneficial to just have the hearing be its own meeting on that Wednesday.
Okay.
The 20th, that would be my suggestion.
Okay. So we'll plan for that. I think that's pretty fair, and that we'll work it out with the department heads and make sure that when we post the public, then people are aware of when the meeting is, okay? Okay, so tonight we're wrapping up the final departments. We've got library, DPW, water, sewer. Thank you, Richard, for jumping in last night to fill in some of that gap. These have gone a lot quicker than I expected, which is a good or a bad thing, I don't know. We'll find out after the 7th. Right, Jeff?
Yes.
Just once in a while, I gotta ask you a question, Jeff, just to make sure. Okay, and De La Chapelle, would you mind jumping in there and presenting your budget? And just to give you a little background of how this is going, we generally just have you line by line, and it'll just be available for any questions that we might have.
All right, well, hello, everybody. The library budget is a pretty steady, I was gonna say stagnant, but that's not very inspiring. It's a pretty steady budget. Things don't change. Unfortunately, when we have a deficit, we're looming, we tend to cut our book budget because it's really one of the few things that we can control. I guess for this year, what's different is we don't have rental income anymore. We don't have the coffee shop. And that was several $1,000s. So we've zeroed that out. We've gotten rid of overdue fines, which really the public was very, very appreciative that we've done that. So that line is zeroed out as well. But what we are doing is we're starting to fundraise. Kind of slowly, but we did a day of giving last year and we raised over $4,000 in that one day. So, and then we just get checks from people on a pretty ongoing basis. So we have gifts and donations at $5,000 for next year, which I think is pretty reasonable. We'd like to exceed that if we can. The trust fund income, that's something called the Tilson Trust. It's managed by NBT Bank. And it was set up a long time ago. There's probably $400,000 in that trust, and we get $16,000 a year. And that's pretty limited in what we can do with it. So it adds to the bottom line, but it's rather limited. We get a little grant from CEF, $200. And then the big one is actually, asking for our full amount from the city again this year. Last year we were cut down to 713,886, and we're asking for the full 751,458 again this year. That's been a kind of a steady number that we've operated well under. We didn't put anything in for capital reserve fund. Library aid, that's from the state. Well, that's federal. We'll get that. The 7557 and the CLDA library aid, that is kind of in flux. There's some legislation that might combine the state book budget we get with that central library development aid. And so there'll be like one pool of money that would be like 170,000, but we're really only going to directly get around 90,000. So the rest is spent by the system and we buy the books. So it's kind of complicated. E-rate, we're continuing to apply for that. It's a nightmare. It's a lot of work, but it's $10,000. So in the expenses, payroll is up a little bit. It's down from 19, but we've brought back our second page. We had 4, we're only going to have 2 now. We had our cleaner, full-time cleaner retire. We've hired a cleaning service now that comes every week. It's about $1,000 a month, I think, but they do a decent job. Overtime, we've left that at, I put it up to 4,060. I'm not sure why, but that's really just when people call in sick. I decline any kind of vacation leave that's going to if I can, within the contract that's going to incur overtime. And staff are really good about switching hours with one another so that there is no overtime. The non-payment compensation is obviously for the health insurance buyout. We don't plan on anyone separating from us this year. Other equipment, we didn't spend a lot this year, but we've always got things that are breaking. We've done our full computer replacement cycle. We're good for another couple of years, but even things like keyboards, or if we need a new anything, I just, technology. And technical and special materials and supplies, that's our book budget. But that also includes magazines, the processing fees for the books we buy, and 8,000 of the trust fund that we get is allocated out of this line to be spent on books that have to do with investing. Building and ground supplies, you know what that is, just kind of everything, and we try to keep that down, but it's a big building. Office supplies, we're stuck, we're staying right at 2,000. We don't really need a lot of office supplies. Electricity, 12,000, that seems to be a pretty steady number. The water, of course, has gone up because we have a 2-inch pipe, I guess.
You're welcome.
Thank
Blame
you,
John
Chris.
for that one.
Yeah, and then the sewer seems pretty steady. The telephone is kind of all over the place. It was as high as 22. I think it was even higher at one point, but it's back down to 17. I think because we're still paying all 3 providers, that's
And this year, what we did, and Richard could probably explain it as well, based on the number of lines that you're using, we divvied up the amount of IT expense equally amongst the different lines that are coming in. For example, the marina is even paying an IT cost, and there's nobody down there. So we got to figure some of that out.
right.
Moving into 2022, we should certainly see a reduction of overall IT managed service cost and support cost. Crossed fingers, there is a proposal that's coming forward for a broadband change, but that's a little bit far off, but
Okay,
we'll see even a reduction. Hopefully we'll see, like the goal is to see even a reduction in the current telephone costs, which include all of those different fees.
and I will say that our E-rate $10,000 does help to offset this internet and managed IT services. I can include both of those in that E-rate. Contracted services is everything from our elevators service agreement to the security alarm system, the cleaner, it's just all the people that don't work right for the library. We've restored that fund a little bit. Printing and copying is pretty steady, 4,300. Repairs to equipment, 500 just in case. Repairs to the building, we've left at 5. We're not sure where we are right now, but thank you, Rich. It's a big building. It's an expensive building. Conferences, we did put 1,000 back in, and I've heard from some of the others of you that conferences are really important. Nobody's asking to travel very far. Most of it's online. Things like the New York Library Association, it's like $129. So everyone's just doing it virtually, but I think it's nice to offer that, especially with newer librarians that have a continuing ed requirement with the state library. Postage, we've got it 1,500. State retirement, this is kind of out of our control. Social Security, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, disability, health insurance, cafeteria plan, EAS, and then the interfund transfers, the last line is the remainder of a debt service, I guess, that we have from way back when, like when they did the renovation, I think in 2004, maybe. But I think we're almost done paying that off. Like it was 40,000 a year, not too long ago. So now we're down to the tail end. So the total budget is 886,040, which is pretty much the same as the 2019 budget. A little more than this year's budget, but we're not really finished with this year. So there's not, plus our contract, I know you just negotiated the ASME contract with the city folks, but we have our own contract and that's up next summer. So we'll be renegotiating that contract with our union and expect to offer something to them as an increase. The library's typically been one of the lower paying parts of the city, and compared to like our cohorts next door that work for the county, they get paid based on a county percentage of people. So they make like more than I make, you know. So it's kind of all over the place with libraries. Some are still starting people at 21,000 with a master's and experience and all this. It's crazy. So we want to be fair. We want to keep our people. But I think we have a pretty steady personnel line right now. Nobody's ready to retire or, you know, quit. People are pretty happy. So that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Like I said, it doesn't vary a lot year to year unless we're forced to make cuts. And then it ends up being our book budget. We really work on the repairs to the buildings because, you know, the leak is causing all the damage before you even see the water. One quick aside, our driveway is torn up now and it's being replaced. We use state construction funds for that, for libraries. Our share is, I think, about 21,000, but we've got 75% reimbursement from the state. So it's a real minimal cost for us. We are working with AEDA to get our roofing specs together. I've got the grant for 298,000. We've put aside another 100,000 to cover our share. So that's at 75%. And we're hoping to get that done as soon as we can. We still have a lot of leaks. We don't have like the buckets all over the library like it used to be, but there are some big leaks when the rain goes just a certain way. So we're looking forward to that. I'm pleased that we save a little bit every year. We put it aside in a capital fund, and that's how we can attest that we can meet our share of that 25% match that's required. So that's how we've done the elevator, meeting rooms, everything in the library is with that state construction grant. So we're not incurring any more debt going forward. And I think that's something that we can be proud of.
Just like other enterprise funds, the library is its own enterprise fund, as Ann so explained. They're managed and controlled by their own board of directors. They do have their own board of directors. Caitlin is the liaison for this board to that board. Counselor Bob, sorry. So for the most part, there's some controls, if you will, on their budget, but for the most part, they manage and control their own budget cycles. As Ann mentioned, they have their own union that they negotiate with, that their staff is under.
But we are funded by the city primarily, so that's really important, and we do respect that. And you know, it's not every municipality that is willing to continue to fund their libraries, and we're very grateful.
Yeah, and that's the local, quote unquote, local share that is interfund transfer to the library in the amount of that 751,000.
And then we have about 130,000 from state, federal donations, other revenue sources that we come up with the 886 in the end.
There are funds, a poison pill tied to the funding that we do provide the library. If we go under a certain threshold, their funding from the state level is also cut. Okay, so that's something for us to be very mindful of. It is the Plattsburgh Public Library, but it does service Glen, Essex, Franklin, town of Plattsburgh,
Right.
Beekman Town, Shazy. It's a regional, more of a regional central library.
So last year, the cuts, I know that Patrick negotiated for us very well, that it was at 5% or 4.999% to get us down to that 713. If it had gone any lower and over 2 years, then we lose 25% of that 90,000 in state funding. So we lose another 25,000. and the system loses a quarter of their funding. So if cuts have to be made, if we can, they need to be done incrementally. But I think we're at a good steady spot right now, and looking for more fundraising is always good. Any questions, concerns? I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. So I tried to pair like departments together, John and Mike Bissett from DPW and John Water Sewer. They quasi go hand in hand, as the Mike is going to talk about obviously DPW, but part of his budget is also funded through water sewer and spread across. Mike's budget is spread across DPW, or sorry, Mike's budget is spread across the general fund, water fund, and the sewer fund. The water and sewer fund, same thing, they're enterprise funds, they manage their own expenses and revenues. So I'll just let you go from there. And we'll talk about water sewer after.
I know this is my spot, but so we'll start with street administration, and what I'd like to do is we'll take each section. Any questions, I prefer to probably answer the questions per section. Otherwise, I'm going to lose my spot here and I won't be able to answer you intelligently. Under street administration, payroll, and this will apply to all the payrolls. ASME did finish a negotiation. So a good portion of our wage increase is the ASME raises you see in here. And then also we've added for this calendar year, the assistant superintendent position back in that we had previously. So you can see in 2020, our payroll is at 136,000, very similar.
Assistant
Superintendent position back into the,
So is that what your title was before?
that was my title before, correct. We did not backfill it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
under this section, overtime, very minimal. That overtime applies to clerical staff and mechanics staff in the shop. So it's a rather small overtime portion of ours. Moving down, you'll line 4411, which is gas and electric. This is something that we work with Chamberlain Marks and John with. We are balancing our fuel costs. Typically, we're taking too much out of other funds. So our natural gas, electric costs for our facilities have been split up. And this year we made sure to put something in this account. All it means is we didn't increase the overall amount. We just split it between the funds a little annually. So that's why that shows up. In previous years, it was zero. You have print copy, that stays pretty consistent, and then postage the same way. So that's street administration. Any questions on that one?
What is the, what's the salary for the assistant superintendent in your budget?
So the first level, I think it's level 13, step 1, 73,000. I'd have to get the chart.
So level 3,
It's level 13.
13, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Step 1. Like I said, I don't have the chart right in front of me. And that salary will be spread out between street administration, there'll be sewer administration, and also water administration. So 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 between the three accounts.
So it would be from street and water, you said?
Street administration, water administration, regular payroll,
Uh-huh.
and sewer administration, regular payroll.
Thank you.
Any more questions about this section? So we'll move on to street maintenance. Street maintenance is just what you think. It's paving roads. I say paving roads. Those are capital projects. This would be anytime you see us doing repairs, potholes, curbs, pieces of sidewalk, anything that's not underground subsurface, not water or sewer related. Again, the payroll went up due to the ASME contract. Overtime, we're keeping that the same, $12,000. Seasonal temporaries, what we did discover this year, not having the recreation department, temporaries were a premium. We have increased our temporary payroll up this, and it's spread out between the three funds, between water, sewer, and general fund. This will include for duration 6 seasonal laborers, and then the potential use of 2 what I call supervisors. So when we do run a special program, for instance, Kogan Avenue, we brought back in a maintenance supervisor to oversee the water line installation portion for the city.
Are those new positions for your budget?
They're temporary positions, and they're not permanent. We use them as required. So if we have a construction project, Kogan Ave, for instance,
Mhm.
where we install the new water line, and it's always been the practice of the city, we bring in, because our maintenance staff has a full docket for the duration, which would be a month. For instance, Tim Santrini was a maintenance supervisor. He's was our most senior water guy. He oversaw the installation of the water line, and a lot of it had to do with knowing what was in the ground, what they were tying the new line into. So that's why we utilize that position.
So, but is that new to your budget this year? I guess that's what I'm
We've
asking.
increased the temporary budget line. Yes, that's correct.
So temporary payroll to
Temporary-
45,000
Yes, that's correct.
for
But
6
we-
seasonal laborers and 2 supervisors.
Yep, but that's, again, remember, you're gonna see this same 45,000 show up in the other 2 lines.
Okay. So it's split. Okay.
Split 3 ways.
Thank you.
And just so you understand, for this year, we have a temporary budget, I believe, of, I want to say it's 83,000, right, Rick, somewhere in that. We've only been able to maintain about 1 seasonal temporary all summer long. So we cannot get people to work.
Mhm.
A lot of the issues, I know the mayor will call me up and say, listen, where are you at with this, where are you at with that? We're just having a tremendous problem getting staffing to do the little things that matter. And we are stretched very, very thin.
Mhm.
So just because we're budgeting for it, I hate to say it, I crossed my fingers. I knew that one of the complaints is our temporary wage was not high enough. I think we were just paying 13
and change.
and now it's gonna be
17.
Yeah.
So
So
a little bit
hopefully
under
it'll be more
17.
attractive. I know Denise was familiar with the old days where there used to be a coveted position. We don't get high school kids anymore. We don't get college kids anymore. I get correction officers that have been retired. That's about all I can get. I hate to say, and we tried really hard. We've advertised 3 times this summer. I'm gonna try to advertise 1 more time this fall. Hopefully we'll pick up someone that wants to work a couple of months here, because we're down 5 people as it is, just regular staff. So, anyway, that's where we're at with temporaries. Separation pay, we have 1 retiree, or 1 person that's going to be retiring, and that's going to be spread out between the 3 funds. You'll see that again. Moving on. Technical and special equipment, we're putting in for $2,500 this year for utility trailers. It'll be probably 2 small utility trailers, the one you see us pulling around behind pickups, carry lawnmowers and other small items.
There's 0 in your.
Okay, I've made, no, it's 2,400, or I'm sorry, capital outlay.
Capital outlays got the
Yeah, I'm sorry,
2,500.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what that's for.
Okay.
Street construction material supplies, that's your blacktop, that's your concrete, gravel, all the things we work with on roads, vehicle supplies. Again, that is for our trucks, that is the fuel cost. And again, we had it top heavy in another account, so we've moved it over. You don't just use gas for water work or sewer work. Vehicle parts stayed pretty stable. Technical and special material supplies, those are signs, signposts. Contracted services, 4430, which is always one that people ask a lot about. That's your line striping. That's your crack sealing. That's the bulk of it there. What you'll notice is in 2020, we only spent 71,000. We did not do the epoxy painting contract that year.
Mhm.
That was this year, we rebid it at 90, it came back in at 93,000, it was up 20,000 the previous year. So we did adjust our budget up a little bit for 2022.
When is that gonna start?
That's the problem. So they're sending me a letter telling me they're still waiting on the epoxy paint. Yeah, they're ready to go. They're hoping sometime in October. It really comes down to when the paint shows up, but you're very familiar with that.
And it's showing. That's
Yeah.
nothing was done.
Yeah, and like I said, it was put out the bid on time. It was awarded. We talked a straight line and they've been in constant contact with us, so.
Pine Street striping was part of that project.
That was part of the Pine Street project, yes.
Looks good.
Thank you. Okay, any questions about this portion of the budget?
Yeah, actually I do. So,
Okay.
in the street maintenance under a regular payroll,
Mhm.
the increase from last year is up to 357,675. That's a difference of about almost $85,000.
Yeah.
So is that all AFSMI or what is accounting for that increase?
Hang on a second. Oh, I know. So we had two laborers in last year for the under refuse, which we never filled. We brought back in the field maintenance worker for recreation. That was a mark that position. The requisite. So there is a position in there. That's what you're seeing.
A rec
So
position.
yes, it was a rec position, but we ended up sacrificing two that got approved in last year's budget. We had two laborers, we're still short two
Right, I remember
permanent
that.
laborers.
Okay.
So I said, listen, we need to bring the people that got laid off, we brought them all back. So everyone that had a job that got laid off or furloughed,
Mhm.
and that title was brought back. So that's carried forward into here.
And so how many people does that represent? The one person, and then coupled with the AFSMI.
Yes.
So this is I'm sorry, a rec employee
It was a rec employee.
was,
Yeah.
okay,
But we, like I said, to make the ASME union whole, we had to offer jobs back to people that got laid off or furloughed first. And correct me if I'm saying this wrong, right,
Mhm.
Rich? And then, once they were filled, we can move forward if
Right.
there were any other hires that had to be made. So that's how that went. So like I said, anyone that lost a job was offered the job back.
what's the salary of that person? That new hire,
I want to say that's a $22 an hour. What's the position? It's rec maintenance worker. That's I believe it is, yeah. We just like, yeah, it's a $22 job.
22 an hour,
20 to, I think it's in the $20 to $22 an hour range. I don't have the payroll in front of me here. Oh, yeah. So it's gotta be closer to 25 now. Yeah.
that'd be good, thank you. Okay, thanks.
Any more questions on this section?
No, thank you.
Okay. And you'll also, just moving forward, that title will be spread out again amongst the other funds.
Okay,
Well, I say that, let me double check that.
Okay.
Well, just because when we did the payroll on that one particular, I don't know.
You know, when you talk about your months or not. That's not gonna be each one of those people divided by three
No.
accounts. It's gonna be three different people, 45, 45. One charge to the streets, one charge to water. It's allocating salaries for people, like spreading it all over different accounts. It's like, we're getting away from that. We include it in the
We'll go on to snow and ice, and that's exactly what it is. Again, we're looking at ASME raises on the payroll. We're staying steady with our overtime we're asking for. Separation pay, we have, again, a portion of our one retiree is the separation pay comes out of here. Technical and special equipment, that's snow blowers, that's shovels, that's small tools for winter, we normally budget for. Street construction materials and supplies, that's your sand, that's your salt. We are down this year. We have a good stockpile from last year, so we didn't have to budget as much, which was a good thing. 4320, 4321. Those will stick out to you. They were both zeros previously. They should never have been zeros. Snowplows need parts, they
Mhm,
need
mhm,
fuel. So
mhm.
we made adjustments. Richard and myself looked at this and we talked about the most equitable way to do it. So that's why you see change in those lines.
We got rid of one third, we're on 50/50.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite contracted services, 4430. That is hired truck. So if we have large snow events, so we cannot accomplish the cleanups in downtown with our own trucks, we occasionally will hire trucks in on an hourly basis. It really depends on the year. If we have a light snow year, we don't hire any. I think last year we might have hired maybe one or two maximum, but we do have that ability. Our trucking capacity has increased in our fleet. So able to handle most of it. Repairs to equipment, just like vehicle parts and technical and special. That is radios, that is anything that we can't do in-house that we have to send out with a snowplow, which is not a large number of things. We can do most of it. That's snow and ice. Any other questions on that section? Okay, we go to refuse. It's refuse and recycling. Payroll's up. We have the ASME raises. I believe we've also put in, instead of the 2 laborers, I went with an MEO position.
Okay,
We're finding the title is easier for us and more versatile. It pays a little bit more. The MEO title is above a labor position, below a maintenance one. And it gives us the flexibility of extra driver and also equipment operator. Overtime payroll, you shouldn't see a whole lot of overtime in the refuse service. Vehicle supplies, vehicle parts, fuel, and again, that's your fuel and that's your parts for your equipment. We had a couple bad years, which I don't even know if they're on this spreadsheet here, but we had a truck or two that, we had 2 trucks actually that lost engines. So that's where large costs were, but this year it's relatively stable. Technical and special, you'll see that, that's actually refuse totes and recycle bins. Personal equipment, that's gloves, safety equipment for the guys on the trucks, vests. Contracted services, those are things that we have hauled out that we can't take. TV sets, refrigerators, other things that get left that we have to pay for. The big item, fee for services, that's our tipping fees. They did go back up this, or they did go up this year, and it's been adjusted accordingly. Small line for repairs to motor vehicles and repairs to equipment, and those are again our radios and things that we can't do. Question? Okay. Parks and beautification, that's our grounds. It's a 1-person operation. You'll notice it's only a salary of $53,000. We do supplement it with typically a full-time employee, and then those temporaries we talk about. And you'll see them, I'm sure you've all seen them throughout the city. Overtime is minimal. Technical and special equipment. This year, we're putting in some money. Again, this will be for trailers, and that's primarily what we replace all those trailers only.
That's not for downtown, is it? This person?
This one person is strictly the parks. He's our groundskeeper. He does everything. The downtown person is actually Rich Family. He comes out of CD.
Comes out of parking.
Street construction material supplies, that's grass seed, that's topsoil, that's anything they would need for beautification. Vehicle supplies, vehicle parts, that's fuel and parts for the trucks. Technical and special, that's mowers, that's blades, that's belts. Tree houses. Is that money for the tree house?
There's actually, I think there's a reserve for tree
Okay,
house.
so we have money in for the treehouse maintenance. We haven't done any since we've gotten it. but-
Sorry to interrupt. So to that point, there should be a transfer from reserve to cover this as a revenue.
But that's not.
Correct. So that'll be a net zero to increase to this budget for that. Yeah, I don't know.
Here's the treehouse revenue line.
There's a treehouse revenue line. Okay, what number is that? Okay,
I don't think it's shown here because we haven't had any in so many years.
Right.
We suppress zero balance accounts. It's not-
it wouldn't tuck into 11/17/10, would it? Public Works Service. Under DPW revenue.
I'll have to see.
Okay. Either way, so the treehouse has a reserve fund for improvements and maintenance. If,
20,300.
right, there's a chunk of change in there. So if we're to do that work from our department, that should be paid for out of that reserve. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Moving on. You got personal protective equipment with gloves, chaps for chainsaws and what have you. Contracted services. Contracted services under Parks and Beautification is actually tree surgeons. Okay. I don't believe we had hired anyone this calendar year. Previous year, we had to hire a lot of them. An example is we looked at a couple trees this year. Department head Tracy and myself, some of these trees are so large, we have to hire cranes. And I know Bill has bucket trucks, he can take the stuff from up high. He'll leave the body wood behind in the branches and we help work with that. But some of these bigger trees, you're gonna have to hire out. So we do a placeholder where if we have a tree that cannot be handled by the city, we have to hire a professional who can handle it for us. So that's what the contracted services is here. Repairs of equipment, again, those are stuff that we cannot do internally. We always carry a certain allowance for that year to year. And they're the same. Any questions on Parks and Beautification? Okay. So that gets us out of our general fund portion. Water next, yes. Water administration. Regular payroll. Just like we spoke about in street administration, we have AFSCME raises and we have that assistant superintendent position we spoke about. Minimal overtime, but it's split between the clericals and mechanics.
There it is, the second page. Second page versus water.
Oh, okay, got it.
Move down to 4411. This will be another common theme we've worked on is our electric and natural gas and balancing it out accordingly. Went down a little, or actually went up. In this account, we were heavy towards sanitary sewer. But that's where you're gonna see the change there. Water bill is in the town, sewer bill the same. Telephone, everyone understands what the telephone is, you're charged by the line. And that goes through all the administration's lines for us. Contracted services under water administration, let me double check here. Copier maintenance and subscription. Print copy. Same. Employee training. That is O&M refreshers. That's the OSHA 10-hour bloodborne pathogens, right to know, all the standard trainings we do. It's been tough the last couple of years with COVID. Because of the staffing that we have, and we're gonna have to come up with a solution. I've been talking with the town actually about how we can get together with them and work on classes. Yeah, when you have a staff of 40 and you only have 1 or 2 terminals, it's kind of hard to get everyone the training they need. So we're gonna work on that. But typically we have a very robust training, safety training budget. So that's what you're seeing there. And then you got postage and shipping, which is minimal. Any questions on water administration? Okay, we're gonna split forward here. You got go by source supply, which John will talk about. Go transmission and distribution. And this is the waterworks end of the meat of it. Payroll. And that is the ASME increases. Over time, we're asking for the same as previous years or at 45,000. I say previous, we budget for 45,000. Temporary payroll, that is what we spoke about in the beginning. Those are our temps. So we split it up between the 3 accounts. You'll see a separation pay of that 1 employee that we're separating with is 8,700 out of this account. Technical and special, this would be anything from listening devices to specialized waterworks tools you might have. Street construction material supplies. Is patching materials for anything we cut up. Vehicle supplies is fuel. Again, we balance between the funds. We were very heavy in previous years. Vehicle parts. Again, trucks, excavators, loaders, any parts repair. Technical and special. Those will be subscriptions for AutoCAD. It is our mapping equipment. Meter parts, radios, marking paint, hydrant parts. There. Of course, we have to go back for the contracted services. I don't know if anyone wants to know exactly. Okay, 4340. And that's Aki landfill monitoring, I believe. That fees for service. That's Aki landfill monitoring, so that's a regular reoccurring fee we have for testing it there. The rest of them are all the same as we normally carry for the small items. Any questions on any one particular item? No? Last is sewer. Payroll, just like the previous accounts, we have an increase. We explained it. Overtime. Again, we're running with what we previously run with. Big change, 4411 would be fuel. And that's, we took, again, balancing that back out for fuel costs and electric costs for our facilities. Water, sewer, again, from the town, because we are in the town, not in the city. So those are the fees we pay. Telephone, that's a big item there for us, with the telephone lines again. Contracted services under here is broken out as our copier maintenance. And also both our Biz Hub and our large format copier. So that's what you're seeing for contracted services under sewer administration. And then we, again, a large employee training portion under sewer. Those are our big numbers there. Moving on to sewer. Sanitary sewer, payroll increases, ASME raises, position we talked about, temporary payroll. The overtime payroll remains constant. Technical and special equipment and capital outlay, both $10,000 lines. Those are for our sewer jets and our camera truck. Those are typically high maintenance items. So that's what you're seeing there. And high use items also. Street construction material supplies, that's patching of anything that we do disturb in the ground, materials that we might use to make that repair. Vehicle supplies, again, we 82,000, that's our fuel. Vehicle parts, truck parts, technical and special materials. That is going to be more of the breakdown with the, again, the AutoCAD, the subscriptions for that. Check that for you. That's ready mix concrete, that's engineering supplies, IT items, sand, gravel, anything for working on manholes and structures. buildings and ground supplies. Again, that's a split up of, it'd be fire extinguishers, anything associated with our building. Fire alarm inspections, that's what's covered in there. Personal clothing, equipment, safety equipment. Contract services. That would be for root control typically and pest control. Fees for services. We have that's for again a portion of building our facility maintenance, which would be inspections. Repairs to equipment, some be contracted out, would be sending any specialized equipment out that needs repairs, it could do internally. The other stuff is pretty much the same. Any particular line we want to talk about? Any?
No,
There.
thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, water sewer, water sewer, and John will cover this as well. Expected to be a little over 4 million in revenue, about 3.6, sorry, 4 million revenue, 3.6 in expenses. That surplus is allocated. It's not something that we can just cash a check to the general fund. A lot of the impact, the IIC, which is the infrastructure investment charge, goes back to reservoir infrastructure. But there will be about $100,000 to the black that has potential of filling some gaps. Talk about the sewer fund, which again, as reviewed, it'll be about 6 million in revenue and a little under 6 million in expense. So.
All right, so that's the context of the water and sewer funds, and we'll start with water. There's a number of components to the water fund. Mike talked about two of his: water administration and transmission and distribution. The water filtration plant, which I'm responsible for, actually has two components to it. There's one called source of supply and one called purification. So let's go down to source of supply, please. We can come back and get into some of the other components of the revenue side if you want to. So source of supply, we've got our regular payroll. It's down this year. We had a retirement last year that we did not backfill. So we've got 4 people instead of 5. And we code some of people's salaries to source of supply, and some gets coded to purification. So we've got a behind the scenes calculation that we do for budgeting purposes anyway, to show how that partitioning occurs. So you can see regular payroll is 35,740. Got some 1333 for non-payroll compensation. I think that's that sick time buyout, Rich?
Yeah, generally that is, that's right.
If you go down to chemicals, you can see we're at $9,000. Chemicals under source of supply is for copper sulfate, which we apply to the reservoirs to suppress any growth of algae so that the raw water quality is better. We need more chemicals. We're running low and costs are a little higher, so we're budgeting 9,000 for that this year. What's that?
Well source.
What's that?
Well, sourcing from the well.
No, this is to apply to reservoirs.
Oh,
Yeah. Merchandise resale is at $1,639. We budget that each year in case we need to take water out of the Saranac River. We've got the legal authority to take water out of the river if we need it, but it comes out of a place called Millsea Dam that's owned by NYSEG. And if we do take water and it reduces the amount of hydropower they can generate, we have to compensate them for some of that. So we haven't done that for years, but we do carry some money there for that. A couple $100 for repairs to equipment, $500 for some motor vehicles out there. And then contracted services at $1,200. That is to hire a forester to help us manage the watershed. We've got 1,400 acres of watershed outside the city that surround the reservoirs. And from time to time, we log it and manage that watershed. So we budget some money for that. And then the contracted services at $1,500 is an annual amount of money that we pay to NYSEG to have the right to take the water if we choose to do so. So this total budget's about $51,000. It's a little less than it's been in the past. So that's basically the water supply. The next component is purification. That's the water treatment. Regular payroll is up due to ASME increases and budgeting a little bit more money to make a salary adjustment to the chief plant operator salary. We can get into the details of that sometime, but that's a position right now that's actually doing the work of two people. We had one retired, didn't replace, now that position's doing two.
What does that mean, an adjustment to the chief plant operator salary? What do you?
It'd be an increase of about $8,000 to the chief plant operator's annual salary. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. Overtime is the same. It's actually down substantially from what it's been in the past. Historically, it used to run up over $20,000 a year. We've made some changes to the way we staff the plant, so we don't need as many people to run it now, which is one of the reasons why we were able to not replace the person who retired. So, but it also helped us decrease the amount of overtime that we incur. We're not budgeting any money for temporary payroll. Got your non-payroll comp again, technical and special equipment. Let's see. Some miscellaneous pieces of equipment the plant needs to purchase throughout the year. We've got $35,000 for capital outlay. In case we need to make some kind of major capital type repair. Vehicle supplies. A little bit more than last year. In particular, gas prices are a little bit higher, so we've budgeted a little bit more there. Vehicle parts is the same at $700. You go down to technical and special materials and supplies. Last year, we had a big purchase of between $70,000 and $80,000 worth of activated carbon, so we could replace all the activated carbon in the filters. We spent that last year. We don't need to spend it this year. That's why you see this line right here is so if you look at our overall budget, it's down, makes us look really good, but it's because we don't have this one big expense this year. Buildings and grounds is the same. Most everything's the same. You get down to electric and natural gas is one of the larger items at 17,000, but we're budgeting the same there. Sewer, telephone, got 15,000 in contracted services there. See, that is things like equipment rentals, lab testing that we have to do, equipment repairs, computer maintenance, training, things like that. And got a few $100 for postage, $400 for some other technical materials. Chemicals here at $3,000. That's lab supplies for the monitors that we have that we measure chlorine residuals, we measure turbidities, and they need to have chemicals added to those monitors in order to make those measurements automatically. In general, that's it. The budget's pretty much the same as it's been, with the exception of the carbon's way down. And then we've got some salary adjustments that.
So I have another question back to the chief plant operator salary. Is that part of the level 3 manager? Or is that person asked me? Is that a
It's a
manager?
management position.
Manager.
Correct.
Thank you.
Welcome. So any questions on the water side? We've talked a lot about the capital improvements that we've been doing and all that. This is the operational side of things. The good news, New York State just advised that the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, or WIA, grant program is open again. We've gotten a lot of money in the past from there, and we have been preparing and anxiously awaiting for that program to open again. We've got a number of engineers reports and that are ready to go in with applications to ask for more money for the capital.
That management increase in there, is that a step increase or is that something outside of that?
It's going to be a change in the range. Mike used the term level, so the level at which that position's at. So for some reason, years back, the chief plant operator at the water plant was in a range 2. But the wastewater plant, chief plant operator is in a range 9. Excuse me, all the operators in the ASME agreement, whether at the water plant or at the wastewater plant, are all in the same pay range. And then when you look at the hourly rate for the management chief plant operator, it's basically the same as what the ASME hourly rate is. So they're making the same amount of money. That doesn't make sense, and it's not fair, considering the fact that also this person is now doing the work of 2 people. And comparing the salary to other managers we've got within the organization, it makes sense from a fairness perspective to make that adjustment. And if you want to meet outside the scope of the budget, talk in more detail about that. You can certainly get into a lot of the details and nuances. So.
Oh, that answers my question, John.
Yeah, you answered the question. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move to the sewer side and the water resource recovery facility. And this is going to be a challenge for a couple of reasons. The water resource recovery facility budgets historically been very complicated. We've been trying to consolidate line items and make it a lot less complicated, which we are doing this year. I think we've done a good job of it, but what it does is it makes it difficult for us to compare what we're budgeting this year to what's been budgeted in the past. Because in the past, every dollar we spent would get coded or partitioned 3 different ways. Some to flow, some to DOD, some to suspended solids. So in our payroll accounts, some of it would be in flow, some would be in BOD, and some would be in solids. And if you want to look at the total amount of money being spent, you'd have to manually add those 3 things up. When it was all partitioned like that every year, you could look from year to year and kind of get a feel for how things were changing or not changing. But now that we've consolidated all those accounts, 1 account now represents what 3 accounts used to. So it can be difficult to, again, look historically. So if you want some detailed historical context, we can try to reconstruct that manually, but it's going to take a fair amount of work. So that's going to be one of the challenges in the Second challenge is one that I created. I mistakenly told Chris Gushel, our chief plant operator, that our meeting was last night. So he made a bunch of arrangements with his kids and all that stuff to be here last night. He showed up early and learned that we weren't going to be on, and he can't make it tonight because he juggled everything to be here last night. So that's on me. What it does is it puts me in a position of, if you have really detailed questions about the budget, I'm going to be dancing and jiving a little bit because he puts all those details together. I've got familiarity with them, and I'll do my best tonight if you've got detailed questions to answer them. But I might also be saying, sorry, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
So do you mean for any questions we have about the WRRF, like this budget? Is that what you mean?
If you have really detailed questions, I might struggle a little bit, or it might take me a little time to answer.
Well, I'll ask the questions and then I guess you can tell me if you can answer them or not, or if Richard.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely ask me the question.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, but so let me give you a
Okay.
little background on WRF. So to give you some perspective on it, because it's hard to look historically. Basically, the WRF budget's up about $217,000, and so you don't have to write this down. I made some copies of the things I'm going to kind of explain. I want you to know. So what I'm going to do is tell you, okay, here's the overall change to the budget, and point out some specific changes that were made within it. And understanding the rest of it is pretty much the same as it was. Did I give you two there? You sure one? Is there?
Karen, is this water pollution or water filtration?
This is,
Water recovery?
it was water pollution control plant. Now we're calling it water resource recovery facility. That's the new industry term standard across the country now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the overall budget's up almost $217,000 from last year, which is about 6.3%. Payroll is $168,000 of that increase. 55,000 is due to salary adjustments, which is basically the ASME agreement. We are also planning to contribute about $6,000 for planning support, the planning office. We contribute money for IT services, and that's up about $2,000. And then this fourth bullet on the handout I just give you, you'll see this acronym TSPM. That's a position we've talked about a little bit in the past. It's a new position we're proposing. TSPM stands for Technical Support Program Manager, or TSPM as we refer to it. It's a position we're going to be advertising for. We have a salary range. We're thinking that the person, if you decide to authorize it, we have a salary range that we're thinking about, but we're using a salary of $80,000 for now, and that's all in this WRF budget right now.
Is that what's comprising the 1100 line?
It's built into that, yeah. So it's built into that $1,076,000. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Now that being said, Rich talked about this the other night. This position, and we're going to do a much more detailed presentation on this position in this near future at some point, is expected to provide technical support and program management across the city to all departments. So that position rightly should be funded where its services are provided. So we're going to be working with Rich and the other department heads on what would be a reasonable partitioning of those costs across the funds in a way that's fair and defensible legally, but also isn't overly burdensome or cumbersome to payroll people and folks in Rich's office. Am I explaining that?
Doing good.
Okay.
Is this an IT position?
It's not an IT position, no. It's gonna be somebody with some technical background, but it's infrastructure related. So some technical background, but also the ability to develop and manage infrastructure projects. So You know, and if,
What does that mean? Develop and manage infrastructure
okay,
projects?
let's say we need new water lines.
Uh-huh.
Somebody needs to hire the engineering firm to design those water line extensions. Go through that procurement process, present it to the council, get it funded. Be the liaison during the design, make sure it gets designed to the scope that we're anticipating. Once that design is complete, they gotta take the construction documents, put it out to bid, award the bids, get with the contractor, manage the contractor, pay the bills, if there's grant money involved, do all the grant administration of submitting the reimbursement requests and all that. So, like, that's kind of the generalities of a project manager is taking, here's a problem we have, we need new water lines, we want to extend a water line, and developing that project from an idea through whatever prep and design is needed, through construction and then through completion.
Does this civil service title already exist?
It does not. When we have looked at a bunch of civil service titles, and right now we're not really clear until we get like resumes and expressions of interest. It's not clear exactly what the background requirements might end up being, and the educational requirements might end up being. We didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves with a specific title that says, okay, you need this kind of degree and this kind of experience, because the type of work we're talking about, people from a broad range of backgrounds could be successful in the role. Could be an engineering background, could be a science background, could be construction management background, could be somebody who's managed projects and programs and other experiences. So what we want to do is when we advertise is describe the type of work that we're looking for, get resumes, vet them, do some interviews, see who might be interested, the kind of person that would fit into this role, and then start to work with civil service. And what we would do at that point is complete what's called a position duty statement, which says, okay, here's the work this person's going to do. And here's the type of educational background we're looking for. Here's the type of experience we're looking for. We send that to them, they review it. They see if it fits within a title that they have. And if it doesn't, then they're, which they don't like to do, they have to create a new title.
And a test.
Correct.
And so
Most likely it would be competitive.
So-
But there are sometimes positions that are exempt and don't require testing.
So, you know, from beginning to end, you'd be looking at months, I would assume.
Yes. So now we want to be ready for, if we decide to authorize and fund the position, we want to be ready to hit the ground running the next infrastructure season, which will be coming up in the beginning of the year, and then towards March is when we typically get into construction. So we plan on advertising now to develop the candidate pool, start to go through the vetting process while we're talking more about the details of this position, what it's going to do, where it's going to report, what it should be paid, how it's going to be funded, so that if you decide to authorize it, we're not starting from scratch when it comes time to trying to find the person to fill this role. That makes sense?
It does. So the $80,000 would be the annual salary?
That's the number we picked. The range is probably in the $65,000 to $85,000 range. So pick the number 80,000, threw it in here for now. At some point, we discussed it with Rich and other department heads, that 80,000 is going to get charged back to other funds. Let's say it looks like this position is going to do 50% of the work is going to be in the general fund. Then 50% of the 80,000 would somehow have to get budgeted to the general fund. Maybe 30% goes to water and 10% goes to sewer. We're still working on how that distribution is going to be made.
May I for a minute?
Sure.
This sounds like what the engineering department used to do. Like we did plans and specs, oversaw the construction jobs, all those kind of things John just mentioned. The city engineer salary was separated into 5 separate salaries, 5 It's the same thing. This is the same exact thing that used to be. Also, the amount of consulting you're doing for construction specs would definitely be less. The salary would be less than what you're paying out for consultants.
So who would the project manager be answerable to?
That's a great question. Most likely, it's going to be a position that reports, it's been a source of discussion. Where should it fit? What
Yeah.
budget should it be and who should it report to?
Mhm.
Since it's going to provide citywide support, it might very well fit best on reporting directly to the mayor. But on a day-to-day basis and a season-to-season basis, be part of the infrastructure division and allow the infrastructure division to deploy that position's resources to where the priorities are. Every week, Mike, Andrew, myself, Matt Miller, Joe McMahon, try to meet, go over all the projects that are going on citywide, what the priorities are, what the needs are. We do coordination. We try to help each other out by prioritizing things. So I would expect this position to be part of that infrastructure division, where we talk about what the priorities are and amongst ourselves, for the most part, decide, all right, what should this person be working on? With the mayor's understanding and involvement, obviously, he's going to set a lot of priorities, but most likely not handling the day-to-day management of supervision.
Right, so who would be this person's supervisor? I mean, ultimately, the mayor is everybody's
Technically-
supervisor. So.
That's still to be determined, but one way it could be done is have that person report directly to them.
I guess I'm really looking at this infrastructure team to help guide this process. At the end of the day, it really is, even though that the person would potentially, and I think this is potential because I don't really know the details of it, all of it, that the person would land in my office, but I'm not directing that person's day-to-day work. It's more of a consolidated or coordinated effort or collaborative effort between those departments that would be using that person. Now, I think I would be more of a mediator. If
Yeah,
I had to
arbitrator.
set a priority on a
Yeah.
project that this person needs to focus on or something, or,
Right.
and that would be done with these guys, not with that individual person.
Yeah, so we're not looking to create a new department.
No, I get that part.
That was one of the things we talked about, and we, for a number of reasons, don't feel that's the way to go. So as the mayor said, Mike, Matt, Joe, get together all the time, decide, all right, what's the hottest priority? And how are we gonna get that high priority done? Maybe I do it, maybe Mike does it, maybe it fits well with this new position and that person will do the work. And then if there's a disagreement between Mike and I over, no, my project's more important this week than yours, and we can't reconcile ourselves, the mayor would have to step in and say, all right, here's how it's gonna go down.
So I guess I would be interested to get more of actual numbers concerning, Denise's expertise and her feedback here about this would be cheaper. Well, I'd like to see evidence of that. I'd like to know how much we're spending on what, I'm assuming what's being done is done through contract services. Because we don't have somebody doing these
Yeah.
things right now,
Some
right?
of it's that, 4 or 5 years ago, there was this major restructuring,
Mhm.
some positions were eliminated. That work got parceled around. So some of that work is being done really well, the way it's been parceled around.
Uh-huh.
Some of it, we're all doing the best we can to do that work. Some of the work gets deferred or falls through the cracks. 'Cause-
Okay, so the work would be like basically retracted out of those departments, housed with an individual who would oversee these things that are being done in various departments. Am I explaining that or understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and we do have a presentation, PowerPoint and all that stuff that shows what these types of projects are, how we foresee them being structured and assigned and where they would fit. And we should probably have like just a specific meeting on that itself at some point to work through why we feel those positions needed, why we feel the types of qualifications we're looking for are the right ones, why we feel that it should report the way we're talking about to the mayor, but being managed by the infrastructure division on a day-to-day basis. and why the salary brings value to the city.
You're asking where most of this work currently being done is started right now, so capital projects.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Technical management, design, that we pay for outside engineers. What's the capital project?
Wasn't Cogan Avenue $120,000 for that? For that engineering thing and supervisor?
116.
116, okay.
116.
Okay, there you go, that's one construction project, right?
Denise, you could be like a spokesperson.
I have a lot of this.
Is like Kelly running again? I mean, didn't you just slide right into his seat there?
It's true.
Proxy.
Engineering and planning department did a lot of things. They did lots of things. And just remember, you will always need a consultant, like for a bridge or a dam, or,
The big specialty
the
work,
big
yeah.
specialty things.
Yeah, and on a,
Now you're paying a consultant for everything. Public Works has picked up a lot of that, a lot of it. Somewhat overloaded, I would say. John uses a lot of consultants, a lot of new things have come out. But again, that's surprising if you're saying this, but pleasantly surprised.
so a lot more
Thank you.
discussion to be had here, so. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
Sorry.
No, fine, so, all right, so, Tispin, it's fun to say.
What did you say?
Tispin, technical support, project manager.
Just kidding.
Made up this name. And all of a
What did you
sudden-
say?
The Apaches used to drink.
What did Jerry Seinfeld used to say? Salsa, it's fun to say. All right, forgive me, all right, don't get me off track here, it'll get that fast. All right, so that's Tispin, that's where it's parked. This regular payroll number, I did find a little bust in my worksheets. So that's actually, that might be $25,000 higher than it should be. So, after these meetings, we're gonna get, back with ourselves in there and all that, and refine some things, but that number might be just a tad high now. So as far as the wastewater plant, the work, the budgeted staff level is the same this year as it was last year. We've been carrying last year, well, when I say last year, I mean in 2021, carried funding for a lab technician and a SCADA technician. SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisitions, basically the computer systems that monitor what's going on at the plant and at remote locations like pump stations and combined sewer overflows. Right now, we contract out all of our instrument controls and SCADA work. Works pretty well. It's not cheap, but it leaves me with a little bit of anxiety not having that some level of in-house capabilities of doing that work. So budgeted some money for a SCADA technician this year. Did not pull the trigger on hiring it because we're not 100% sure exactly what direction we want to go. So rather than just hire somebody and spend the money, we didn't do it, but we're carrying that money in the budget again this year, 2022. We also carried some funding for a lab technician. We're expecting a retirement at some point in not too distant future, but we know how those things can drag on. But once we do know about a retirement date, we do want to be able to bring somebody in advance to get them up to speed before the person who carries the bulk of the lab work actually does retire.
Do you typically do that as a temporary part or temporary, full-time temporary, or do you do that straight as this is it, or?
You can do it multiple ways. Usually if we know somebody's going, then we find the person that we want to hire and we make it a permanent hire. We have done some
With the
things.
same titles, or is it that you have two people with the same title working in the same job?
It could be. Well, like we have 7 wastewater treatment plant operators, 7 people in that same title. So now it's interesting at the WRF, there's 3 major types of work. There's operations, making everything work, doing the process control and making sure treatment occurs. There's the work in the lab, and there's maintenance work. And historically, the plant had 3 different divisions: operations division, maintenance division, and laboratory division. Used to be, I don't know, 5 or 6 maintenance people, 5 lab people, 8 or 9 operations people. We've moved away from that model and tried to get everybody certified as an operator, because that's what drives our coverage. We have to have certified operators at the plant when it's actively being sampled and process controlled and all that, and coverage 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So what we've been doing, instead of having those 3 different divisions with a lot of people, we've taken operators, get people certified and cross-training them to do lab work and to do maintenance. Or what we've done is we brought in somebody, this is how the best way to do it, bring in somebody who we foresee being an operator who's got a lot of heavy maintenance skills, or somebody who's got a lot of lab skills, and then we teach them to be an operator, so that our operators can work across all 3 disciplines: operations, maintenance, and lab. Now, typically what happens is each individual's got their, somebody came out of a laboratory background is usually going to be a lot better at the lab work than a maintenance person that we got certified as an operator and now are making them work in the lab. They're not as good at it, and they don't necessarily like it, but it does work. So anyway, we've been able to reduce staff by almost 60% at the WRF over the last 12 or 15 years by focusing on having mostly operators and then cross-training them to these other disciplines. So this lab tech position, I know it's a long explanation, could end up being an operator trainee that we know we're going to work predominantly in the lab kind of thing. So.
John, I'm really sorry, but I do have to go.
Okay, that's fine. I'm working down my sheet here. So for the most part, again, the budget's the same except for the things I've talked about. And then there's a box about 2/3 of the way down that identifies other changes. There's $2,000 that's added for our 5-year chemical tank inspections. We have a lot of chemical tanks that are registered and certified by the state. We have to inspect them periodically, and that's due. We've got $14,150 added for electrical services rate increase. $200 as a price increase for vermiculite that we need to buy. A $2,000 increase for aluminum sulfate and sodium hypochlorite price increases. On the solid side, $20,400 in increased sodium hypochlorite and sodium thiosulfate price increases. Sodium hypochlorite is used to disinfect the wastewater. Before it leaves the plant, we add a chemical called sodium thiosulfate to take that chlorine out. We've actually reduced our maintenance costs on the dewatering side by $10,000 because we have new bell filter presses now, and we don't need to be buying all the parts that we used to buy. And we added $12,000 due to increase in pricing at the disposal for sludge at the landfill and the beneficial reuse facilities called grasslands. So that's where this $217,000 number comes from. If you want to get a little feel for the budget, Beth, you can scroll down through WRF. All our costs are broken into different areas, components like shop, pump stations in general, Cumberland Avenue pump station. We've got a pre-treatment section of the plant where we track our costs separately. We've got a raw waste pumping system where we track costs separately there, and all these different line items. Now, again, a lot of the costs will look like they're up substantially, but that's because of this budget consolidation that occurred. There used to be 2 other line items that would factor into the historic cost, and we don't see those.
So the same thing with your $1 million
That's what I was wondering about, the 1,100 line.
Yeah, it's like a double.
Oh, yeah, so it looks like we doubled the staff. Yeah, there used to be two other regular pay line items that got into that total number.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's the worth in a kind of a nutshell.
I have one other question. So, these operational increases that you put on the worksheet,
Mhm.
the lines, are they just kind of trying to cross-reference here? Are these supposed to correspond to the line items on here? Like when you say like 1154330?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I noticed that there's much more of an increase than the 14,150. We're going from 96,000 to 174 on that line.
Right, but there's two other
Two other steps.
that used to be in there also, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so that's basically, you're just breaking out what the.
Yeah, I'm
increase
just
are.
giving you the
Okay.
increase overall, yeah.
Okay. I got
And if you ever want to drill down into more of the details, we can do it, but it's a manual calculation that we'll have to sit down and do. So,
you. Yeah, and
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Kind of use them
I
together.
know, I was struggling with how to present this in a way that was maybe possible to understand. I'm looking at it myself, not even sure I understand it, so I can empathize with how you're feeling.
No, that's helpful there.
But in general, the water and sewer funds are, the budgets are balanced and they're healthy. The sewer revenues and expenses are very close to each other, but the sewer fund actually has a lot of cash in it. Well, if we get our cash back from the leases, right? I know we got 5 or 6 million back so far, but
One thing we should do in here is transfer into the capital reserve.
got a pretty good fund balance. Pretty good fund balance still.
Net cash right now is $1.9 million. So taking $1 million of that and putting that into the capital reserve makes sense because then it's set aside for, purposes just for the.
Yeah, so even though the sewer revenues and expenses look close, there's a lot of money in the fund balance, there's a lot of money in the reserves. And we typically spend less than we budget on the sewer side, more so than the water side. I'd say the water side expenses are probably budgeted a lot more closer than where we actually hit. So, but overall, both those funds are in pretty decent shape.
Water recovery next week with the insurance.
That helps. So, any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Just one question for me, water revenue, investment charge, water tanks, Mead Dam, Westbrook, those are on our bills every month.
Correct.
Are they gonna continue? Is that an investment for us taxpayers?
Until the bond is paid on Mead Dam. Not sure when that. Oh, you said Mead, okay, so on the water tanks, the first, maybe explain to the council, on everybody's water bill, there's charges called infrastructure investment charges. There's one for when we built new water storage tanks, people pay, I don't know, $1.50 a month or something like that towards the tanks. There's one for Mead Dam, and there's one in charge for Westbrooks. The Mead Dam, the water tanks have been built, bonded, and that IIC money will be used until that bond's paid, and then it can go away. On the Mead Dam and Westbrook charges, we don't know where the project is going to end yet. Originally, as you know, we had started looking at rehabilitating Mead Dam. The cost just kept going up and up and up and up and up.
It still isn't done.
No, but we've pivoted and are now looking at drilling wells out next to Mead in order to potentially replace that reservoir, so we don't need to rebuild the dam.
Which I still am worried about, but that's my personal thing, but
But
I mean, are we ever gonna do Mead Dam in Westbrook, or is it, we're gonna stick with these wells? or-
that remains to be seen. We're getting ready to drill a production well sometime in the next several months. So if we hit a lot of water and it's looking good, we'll probably drill some more, and then we might be able to say, okay, we don't need Mead Dam anymore, and it goes away.
You feel good about that?
Knock on wood, all the signs so far have been promising, but you never know when you're drilling a hole in the ground. So,
Again, I've always been worried about these two dams that haven't been fixed for years and years and years. And I get that a well is safer, right, from terrorists and all that. This is the way to go. The wells. But, so anyway, we'll continue to see these.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. At this point, like I said, my office is open to feedback, concerns, criticisms, constructive ones. And would love to hear some feedback on continuing to shape this budget. We are neck deep, Richard and I exchange every single day, like I said. Still pulling department heads into meetings to discuss their payroll and their projects and initiatives to continue to shape this. At the end of the day, I'm, really targeting at a zero. I'm not even gonna say it. I shouldn't say that, should I? Don't say it. Richard, shut up. Don't say it. No promises there. Mute the mic. I think it's a budget that on the 7th that will be delivered that everybody can be proud of. Okay, so that's my goal. And again, I'd love to hear more feedback from you all based on these meetings. That could help continue to shape that. With that being said, there is no other business to come before these sessions. I do appreciate the time that you all have spent and the council has spent. Thank you, Beth, for staying late as well. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Canales, second by Councilor Bop, all in favor?
Hi.
You're adjourned.